That's Wes.
And he's Corey, and we're the Triflemen.
So, I want to talk about how TV shows as a whole have changed. But a lot of it started with Netflix, when they started streaming and pumping a lot of money into TV shows. It was around before then. And to me, probably the most clear indicator was Breaking Bad and AMC.
Is this a commentary on the expectations of quality?
Yes.
From the audience?
Across the board quality, whether from directing, acting, production, studio, everything.
Because I'll definitely say that AMC works really hard on their television series.
Yes, they absolutely do.
From casting to sets, wardrobe, special effects, writing, advertising, tie-ins with other shows. There was a time Sunday nights was dominated by AMC.
Now, one exception to this is probably HBO. HBO's always dumped money into stuff. You know, Sunday night, their whole thing was the best night on TV.
Well, you know, they say it themselves. It's not just TV, it's HBO.
Exactly.
So I don't think you can put HBO with the same.
So that is a bit of an outlier. But for the most part, and let's just talk about your basic cable. You know, your CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, the big four. There was a point in time for me where I'd almost be caught dead if I was watching a TV show. I didn't watch TV shows. I watched movies. I watched all kinds of movies. I watched as many movies as I could watch. But TV shows, I didn't watch. In the 90s, I started the 90s watching The Simpsons. I ended the 90s watching South Park.
Was your issue with television based on commercials? Did you not let it sit through the commercials? Or do you think the quality of television shows during that time frame was subpar in comparison to Hollywood features?
It could be a little bit of both. The commercial aspect of it is just, it is what it is. I mean, now look, I did watch TV as a kid, you know, because you couldn't watch as many movies back then. Wasn't going to the theater when I was 10 years old, and I only had limited access to HBO. So I watched a lot of TV.
Sure.
But I like stuff like Cheers, you know, mainstream stuff, the A-Team, things like that as a kid. But looking back on, it's still not high quality stuff. Hell, Cheers is all set in a bar, man. It's one of the cheapest sets that's ever been made.
What would you say was the highest quality on a television series that you watched when you were a kid? It's got to be a cop show. Most cop shows have.
Well, you know, the A-Team is one. The Fall Guy, things like that.
Sure.
That had explosions. The Dukes of Hazzard, maybe, and that's you know, not high quality.
Definitely wasn't Battlestar Galactica.
And truth be told, and I didn't watch this show, but because I was too young for it anyway, because it started before I was born. But Dallas.
It's all the adults loved. It was huge.
MASH. It seems on the surface like high quality production value, but then it's just people.
It's all filmed in a tent.
It's all intense all day.
It's all in a tent.
So your money is being spent on the cast.
But, you know, you could say, though, a lot of shows focus on one or two areas. Cheers was set in a bar, okay? Yep. Star Trek is set on a spaceship, but you only ever see 4 rooms.
Yeah, it's just a set.
I mean, Next Generation, you see the bridge, the bar, engineering, Picard's office, the ready room, as it were.
And that's just 5 rooms on a revolving set.
Or 2 rooms that they redress between shoots. I mean,
takes up a corner of a studio on a lot.
Look, I know this. The window in the ready room is suspiciously the same size as the view screen on the bridge on Next Generation.
You know, I could get into that, though, where you see things. I've caught things in Game of Thrones where they've reused sets. Then this is off topic for a moment. The room in Bravo's Hall of the Many Faces.
Yes.
It's the same room as the Iron Throne.
Is that right?
The way the room is set up, like the big pillars in there, they're got to be on casters, man. In the Red Keep, they're all in a row. In the Hall of Many Faces, they're kind of circular around the side of the room. So yeah, to me that those two sets are the same room, just dressed up differently. Just as the same way, and I'm sure you know this because it's kind of well known this point in sci-fi culture, but the uniforms that were used in Firefly were the same uniforms used in Starship Troopers.
Oh, the soldiers, their battle armor. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. It was the same.
And there were pieces of those same uniforms used in something else. I do not recall what, but things are reused a lot in Hollywood.
Michael Westmore, who many of you will know his daughter, she's the host of the show Face Off and on Sci-Fi, and Michael Westmore himself even shows up from time to time. He is notorious for reusing sets, props. There is a particular ship that they redressed 4 times on Star Trek The Next Generation throughout the seasons. Today's props, people keep them and sell them online and they're big money. But back in the early days, man, they reused so much stuff. Jaws. Spielberg left behind everything when they made Jaws. Everything.
And several, I lack an example, but I've read things about props from Jaws appearing in other stuff. The ice cream maker in Star Wars. Some person's carrying around what is clearly an old school ice cream maker.
Oh, yes.
And now they created a thing in The Mandalorian for what that thing is. They created a whole new prop that looks exactly like an ice cream maker, but isn't. It's what it houses the payment of the Beskar at the very beginning of the series.
To explain why they had an ice cream maker.
Yeah, just like they play off those old gags and make it modern, man.
In the early seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation, they are carrying around what looks like toolboxes. Mm-hmm. And they were really side-loading compact disc case carriers.
Yeah.
My brother had one.
Yeah. I've seen other things like that, too. I ran across something the other day that was a list of things like this, and it showed something from some sci-fi movie from the 80s, and people had all these high-tech gadgets because it's the future or whatever, and it's a Walkman. Somebody had a pager as some kind of thing once. I mean, the stuff, the practical effects. I mean, hell, a lightsaber was originated from a part of a camera flash.
How much do you remember about Mallrats?
I mean, quite a bit. I haven't watched it in a while, but I've seen it a bunch of times.
Down to costumes?
I know Jason Lee, I want to say, wears a plaid shirt. Or plaid over a t-shirt, maybe?
All right, so Jason Lee portraying Brody Bruce, he wears a particular t-shirt. The t-shirt has a warped face on it.
Okay.
It's like the silhouette. It's a white t-shirt with a black silhouette of a face, and it's like warped. It almost looks like an album cover.
Okay.
That face is an amalgamation of 3 different actors that tried out for the role and did not get it. And as an homage to those guys, because they came close to nailing the role, Kevin Smith threw them on a t-shirt and had Jason Lee's character wear it so those guys could still be in the movie.
Okay. Mallrats, funny movie. It's got some stuff that's a little dated now.
I was just going to say, it has not, some of the humor is not aged well.
So, just the other day, I'm going to go way off topic for a second. Just the other day, I'm having a conversation about malls with my wife. And we were talking about this one particular town where, growing up for me, there was 2 malls in that town. One was the nice mall, one was the dirt mall. And how over time, they put money into that old dirt mall. It was closed for years, and when it reopened, it was super fancy. And now it was the nice mall, and the other one had become the dirt mall.
So the old switcheroo.
Yeah, both of them held both roles at one time, but never both at the same. But I got to talking about Mallrats because if I ever go to a low-class mall, I call it a dirt mall.
For those of you who don't know, I am from Panama City, Florida. The Panama City Mall was very reminiscent of the Mall of America that they used in the movie. I mean, there wasn't 2 floors, but the food court and everything. I mean, malls are malls, man.
Yeah.
Star Court, Panama City Mall, Mall of America, malls are malls. But the dirt mall was exactly like the 15th Street Flea Market on 98 in Panama City.
Yeah, because the Dirt Mall is basically a flea market.
It is basically a flea market. So when I'm watching that, it's like, absolutely. On the weekends, you go to the mall. If you don't find anything at the mall on your way home, you stopped at the 15th Street Flea Market. You could always find something there.
Modern TV shows.
Do you think Netflix has forced network television to up their game in quality?
I believe part of it, yes. I don't think it's just Netflix.
Well, I mean, clearly now you have the competitors. I mean, everybody's got a streaming service. Amazon, you know.
Well, look, you brought up AMC earlier. AMC had quite a bit to do with it as well. And in its difference from HBO being that, AMC, although you're not going to get with the most basic of cable subscriptions, whereas HBO is you got to pay us every month. You want this service. Hard to compare the two, but the AMC putting out the high quality of TV that they started doing with the likes of Breaking Bad and Mad Men. That combined with the streaming model, once Netflix realized that, hey, we can put our own stuff out with big name actors. Well, then you've got everybody else and their brother just like, well, shit, we got to do the same thing or we'll be left in the dirt.
Normally we agree.
Sure.
This time I don't think so.
All right.
You say that television quality, I don't know how far back I don't know if you're talking about I Love Lucy, or I don't know if you're talking about Night Court. I don't know, because I know we talked about Dallas. Okay. I know if you go back now and watch the old series that they look hokey. But for the time, Quantum Leap had two grade A actors. Dean Stockwell, a seasoned actor, a veteran, one of my favorite actors.
I like Dean Stockwell.
He might be considered underrated. I don't know, but I'm a Dean Stockwell fan. Scott Bakula, I loved him in Quantum Leap, and he's a good actor.
Oh, I was a huge Quantum Leap fan as a kid.
Do the special effects look bad now? Of course they do. They were state of the art. That was as good as it gets. I would be willing to bet that the network spent their budget for the year on Quantum Leap.
But I bet even still, if you go back and look at it, it's probably not as clean as you think it is.
I've watched Quantum Leap. I have it on DVD.
Okay.
Man, it holds up.
I mean, look. I'm not knocking Quantum Leap or other shows from the time period. I'm just saying.
Oh, because I have an arsenal.
Because across the board, the quality's just not as high as it is now.
I'm not saying it's as high as it is now.
Even based on what was available then.
Technology gets better.
Yes, it's not just that.
Actor pools get better. There's a lot of stars that are discovered on a daily basis today because of the internet that nobody ever heard of 20, 30 years ago because we didn't have access to those people. If you didn't live in New York or Hollywood, it was pretty hard to get discovered. Now, a mom from Milwaukee can be discovered on YouTube.
Right.
So, leading from there, X-Files.
Okay.
X-Files had great acting, good special effects.
And X-Files is an outlier.
Because Fox has always spent money on their shows.
I'll tell you a show I was a fan of.
Okay.
This is going to be way out of left field, but early Fox shows. When I was a kid, when Fox was not one of the big four, they were still an upstart. And I watched a lot of that channel because they could get away with a little more than the other channels could. I mean, In Living Color, that show was wild, man. But it was so crazy that a regular network, the big three, they weren't going to put it on there.
In Living Color was ahead of its time, but I almost think it was a little too ahead of its time because you can look back and say, well, it was a progressive show and they were edgy, especially for what it was. Mm-hmm. But that edge has turned to cringe. The jokes about sexuality, the jokes about special needs. I think there was a time and a place for that, but just looking back, and bear in mind, it's been years since I've watched In Living Color. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that their most popular bits and characters would all be considered offensive today.
Oh, yeah. Fire Marshal Bill, Homie the Clown. Yeah.
Handyman.
Yeah. But I use that to just make my point in how Fox was a little wilder then, obviously. So, the show I really want to talk about is Herman's Head.
Love Herman's Head.
It's not streaming. It's not. I look every couple of months. It is not streaming. It's extremely low quality versions on YouTube, and I just couldn't put myself through it.
When Hulu first came out, they had a little bit of everything. They had that old weird science television show that USA put out.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, Herman's Head, it was such a unique kind of thing. And for those of you out there, there might be a few of you that know this. I feel like it's forgotten.
Herman's Head is the original Inside Out. Inside Out was a ripoff.
Okay. So it's about this guy, Herman. He works in an office. It's got a cast of characters in the office with him, one of which is the voice of Lisa Simpson, Yeardley Smith. The other is Hank Azaria, who you know from a million things, and he's been around forever.
And The Simpsons as well.
Yes. There's 4 characters that make up the parts of Herman's brain, his psyche, if you will. It's 3 men and a woman, that basically, I want to say it's like she's like Angel.
She's sensitivity.
She's the feminine side.
Yeah.
Then you've got...
he's lust.
He's the lust, gluttonous, just wants to do everything fun and get laid and all
He's
that.
like a frat guy.
Then you've got the smart guy and you got the wimpy guy. And depending on who wins in any kind of argument they have within the head determines the decisions that Herman makes.
I mean, it's a very unique show because there are very much 2 different shows taking place simultaneously.
Exactly.
The cast that plays Herman's personality never interacts with anybody else on the show, including Herman himself.
Yeah.
Herman, existing in the real world, has a slew of coworkers and friends, and he interacts with people. And you watch intermittently scenes from the outside world and the inside of Herman's head, much like Inside Out.
Well, I never saw Inside Out, and now I know that I don't need to because I already know what happens.
Oh, you've already seen it.
Well, I guess I imagine if you could do this show 1,000 times over, and each character is going to have a different combination of traits in their psyche. If it's ever streaming again, and I get a chance to watch it, that I will enjoy it, but I will probably also cringe at it as well.
Well, it came out at a time when networks had the ability to do what Netflix does. They could pump out a show. If it didn't do well in the first season, they could axe it and go on to the next thing. Networks relying on advertisers and where they get their money, that limits their choices of what they can greenlight and what they can go with, which is another reason why the quality of television has gotten better and the quality of actors that they hire to portray these roles in these network television shows are better.
And
Kiefer Sutherland.
Streaming money.
You're not going to pay $15 a month to watch NBC. I'm not.
Well, they have that Peacock app.
They do. I don't have it.
I don't either. I don't even know how much it is.
No, but I have Netflix.
It could be $1 and I still don't care.
I don't care.
And I have most streaming services.
I have the top 4.
I'm thinking I'm at top 6.
Oh, there you go. What would be your number of hours spent watching network television versus your number of hours spent watching streaming? I can tell you mine.
You talking about now?
Yeah, I can tell you mine. I don't even have network television. I don't need it.
I do because I have Hulu Live, but most of it is stuff I record and I fast forward through commercials.
If you watch sports, if that's
Yes.
if that's your thing, you need network television. But if you do not watch sports, you do not need network television.
News and sports, I mean, that's, those are both current things. But
I can stream current shows on Amazon Prime, and I can stream most of the old shows I like on Hulu, Netflix, or Disney Plus.
The writer's strike of whatever year that was. What did we decide?
It was 08.
Yes. Whatever year it was. Doesn't matter to me, really. But
The writer's strike of 08.
fine. Because of the writers and what they got on their side of the deal, their quality went up. And a lot of that's got to do with how TV shows, and let's just talk about your basic sitcom here now, for example. Whether it be Cheers, MASH, whatever, because MASH was a comedy, I don't care what anybody says. They were 24, 25 episodes a season. And you're having, as a writer, you're having to pump out ideas as fast as you can. So you're basically using anything you can come up with.
Well, the days of the summer and fall break for television shows are just about over.
The fact of the matter is nowadays, you look at a show like Breaking Bad with 10, 12 episodes in a season, they're much higher quality because the writers can spend their time hashing out what a good script is versus this is just the next thing that popped up in my head. Because writers were put to it back in the day. And that decreased the overall quality of TV shows.
The quality of Sons of Anarchy, I think, surpassed a lot of television shows. From the actors to the sets, the special effects. I'm going to tell you how good the special effects were. Charlie Hunnam cannot drive a motorcycle.
He does not know how.
He does not know how. And unless specifically told, now bear in mind, I'm not a biker. But I've watched a lot of movies. It looked like he was riding to me. Now, I know they can do a lot with special effects, body doubles, CGI, stunt guys. But when you see him on the bike, he looks like he's riding it to me, man.
So you bringing that up, I want to circle back to something I wanted to bring up a minute ago. Back when Fox was cool. The best show was Married with Children. It had staying power. Married with Children was a fantastic TV show that a lot of the stuff doesn't necessarily hold up now, but Al Bundy is one of the greatest characters ever created for any medium of all time.
Clash of the Titans, bro. Married with Children is awful. Okay?
It is.
No, it's awful. I remember getting excited when the DVD came out, because it had been years since I'd watched Married with Children. And I'm like, oh, Married with Children, man.
See, I watched reruns.
I was looking for these nostalgia glasses. I put them on and look, Married with Children is a piece of shit. Is the acting great? Of course it is. It's got Katie Sagal and Ed O'Neill in it. Okay? The acting is good. Poor set quality, poor production quality.
Oh, yeah. Fox was cheap as shit back then.
And the writing was horrible on Married with Children.
But you know what, though? The thing about Married with Children, it was definitely over the top. All the characters were over the top.
No.
I remember even as a kid watching, I'm 10, 11 years old, watching episodes of that thinking, how are these people still alive? Because they haven't eaten. And they talk about never eating because they never have money because they're too poor to eat. And how are they not dead?
Look, if you want to know how they eat and breathe and other science facts, just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. Let's agree to just relax, man. When Married with Children was on television, I you have to think about things and remember them. Mm-hmm. So the character Steve, who their neighbor Marcy was married to originally before Jefferson, and I loved Jefferson's character.
Jefferson was great.
Jefferson was the best part of Married with Children.
He was funny.
But I remember all this, they advertised the return of Steve. It was a huge deal. Shit like that was a big deal.
The cheating wife.
Right. But the return of Steve was advertised heavy, okay? So in the episode, he's a park ranger and he steals an eagle egg or some rare bird. Well, he gets turned into the police. So it's almost like a Who Shot JR type of a deal. Who turned in Steve? And everybody's pointing the finger at everybody. They reveal at the end of the episode that the fucking dog turned him in. That was the moment when I was done with Married with Children.
I mean, look, that show stayed on the air for like, I want to say 8 or 10 years.
Dude, Beavis and Butthead was popular. That doesn't make it good. I'm not shitting on, what's his name?
Mike Judge.
Yeah, Mike Judge. King of the Hill's awesome.
I love most of everything Mike Judge has ever done.
He's got good movies, man.
Extract, great movie.
Jason Bateman.
Idiocracy, great movie. So we've been talking about this quality of TV here, and I think we should start to wrap this up. But as opposed to talking about then versus now, I want to think about just all the TV shows out there that you've ever watched. Not necessarily your favorite, but what do you think is the most well-made TV show that you've seen?
Oh, WandaVision.
All right.
The writing of WandaVision is engaging. It's intriguing. And there's a lot of mystery, but not to the point where the audience feels left out, but it doesn't give enough away to where the show feels predictable. There's a lot of innuendo. There's a lot of inside jokes that only diehard fans would know. But at the same time, there's a lot of jokes on television as a whole that everybody can be a part of. So there's something for everybody to enjoy when it comes to the humor, the mystery, the intrigue. And let's face it, if you're watching WandaVision and you're not a Marvel fan, why are you watching WandaVision? So the inside jokes are for us.
Right.
The acting. I don't need to sit here and defend anybody's acting except for maybe the kids. But I mean, they're kids. You know, children actors are going to be child actors.
Ralph Boner,
man. Hey, even for the small parts, man. Elizabeth Olsen, I love it. My favorite, she's my favorite Marvel actress. Mm-hmm. But she is becoming one of my favorite actors across the board. Paul Bettany. I've loved him in everything he's ever been in.
I've been a fan of Paul Bettany a long time.
Catherine Hahn, everything in there. I loved how we started the show off in black and white. Didn't feel the need to explain to the audience why we're in black and white. But it played very well. I thought the use of modern technology to make hokey, old school special effects was brilliant.
Yeah.
The transition from black and white to color and how it made sense in the storytelling. You know, there were parts of WandaVision that kind of scared me a little. You know, it's a farce, it's a horror, it's a love story. There were times where I got angry and I wanted to throw something at the screen, and there were times that I just wanted somebody to hold me and tell me that everything was going to be okay. Right. I felt all the emotions that Wanda felt.
They were very creative in the way that they told that story for that show. And I felt like, for me, and I'm assuming that's the only season of that we're ever going to have, feels like just sort of a wrap-up of some of their story.
So I don't think WandaVision was a wrap-up on their story. I've read a lot and seen a lot of people critique Multiverse of Madness, saying that Wanda became a villain off camera. Did they not watch WandaVision?
Oh, no. See, I don't agree with that.
You watched the creation of the Scarlet Witch from episode 1 until the end.
Oh, of course.
We watched her become a villain.
Well, at the very end of the season, I mean, you see she becomes the Scarlet Witch.
It's not my fault if you didn't understand that was the origin story of the Scarlet Witch.
Right.
But it was a beautiful show, and sometimes we have to watch people lose everything. Not every show, not every story can be about the hero. Sometimes the story is about the villain. Let's not miss the point.
Well, when I say they wrap up, I'm talking about her and Vision's story.
I don't think her and Vision's story will ever be over.
Well, and you may very well be right. Time will tell on that. That's Wes.
And he's Corey, and we're the Triflemen.